All right, now last time you started playing around in lesson 11 and you're discovering all these cool properties where you can kind of format the images, which are wonderful. What I want to do is get you to have a reference, okay? Because we want to be able to style the pictures, images that we put in our web page. So here is what I'm going to have you do, okay? Start a new page. Okay, and I want you to put on here image properties in CSS. Okay, image properties in CSS. And actually, I'm going to even start a new page because there's so much on here. Okay, I'll write it too. Sometimes when I write with you, then it gives me a little better gauge on how much time it takes to write this stuff down in your notes. Image properties in CSS. Okay, remember CSS always uses the curly brackets. So img is the tag that we are using, that we're referring to, and then you start with the curly bracket, right? Okay, so let's kind of go through the ones that you've seen. These are common and what they do. All right, so start a new line. Okay, first one, float. So, and then remember, after that property, put the colon, and then you will get some choices here. One of them says inherit, and I usually say just ignore that one. None, well, that doesn't really do anything. So you can choose left and put a semicolon, or you could choose right, so put that underneath there and put a semicolon. Here's what this does, okay? It allows you to wrap the text around your image. And if you choose left, that's where your image is going, to the left side of your screen, and then the text will move up and wrap around it. Wrap text around your image, okay? Now, here's the bummer on this one, because it doesn't give you an option for center. Because, well, what that does is that would make it funny, because then when you go to wrap text, and if you've done this in like Google Slides or a document, you'll know that then your words go on both sides and it's like you're trying to read through the picture and it's a mess. So in our CSS and in the HTML, we have to go about centering it in a different way. It is a lot more complicated if you still want to wrap stuff around there. Do you remember the Zebroid page back there? All of those images were centered, but the text didn't wrap. If you really want your images centered, basically the quick way around it is, and don't write this down, but if you do under the whole body of the page for your rule, and then say text align for the property, and you're like, hold on, that's just the text. Hold on. And if you say center and put your semicolon like that, it will center the text, but it also will take your images and center them as well. Now, it won't wrap your text around it. So it's a limited kind of easy peasy shortcut. Let me get to code here for a second. Not that one. I have too many. Oh, boogers. I have too many tabs open. Okay. But if you go back to that Zebroid page, everything was stacked like this. Everything was centered. So if you want it to look like that, you could get away with doing it this way under the body tag. However, if you really want to center it, it is a little more complicated. We have to get into, I think, classes or something. And I would just say go to W3 Schools and do some investigating there, and see if you can figure it out. Okay. It's just a little beyond this stuff. So for now, float left and right. Okay. That wraps the text. Okay. Next, when you have images, and especially if you're going to start floating the text, you might wish to put in place a margin around your image. Okay. sometimes if you don't, your words are going to end up going smush right next to your image, and it doesn't look very nice. So here, for a margin, you have to pick a number. Usually you pick something small, like 4, 5, or 6. And this is one of these where you have to put a PX for pixels and put the semicolon. I'm not saying you have to use 6, just an example. This is how much space between your image and your words, okay? Between, I can't spell tonight, image and your text, okay? Whatever content. So you might want to utilize that, especially if you're using image float. Okay, now we saw, oh gosh, at the end of lesson 9, how you can do width and height, and you can do it in the actual image tag on the HTML file. But if you want all of your images to have the same height and or width, you can do that over here in the CSS side. So if you want to make all of your images have the same height, then you just put in something like, a 200 pixel, like that. You can do the same thing with width. If you want all of the images on your screen, then maybe you want to have like 300 pixels here. Again, make sure you have the PX or it's going to go kaflooey. Okay. This will take all of your images and make them the same for size. Okay. So you may or may not want that. You might want one of your images to be different, and then you'd have to tackle that separately within your HTML for that one. Okay, but those are kind of nice, and it does give a kind of a nice clean look to your web page. Okay. All right, now the last ones are kind of the big ones. Okay, sorry, I'll leave that up there a little bit if you were still writing. I apologize. The last one that I'm going to have you add in here, and keep in mind there's tons of other ones, but these are the ones we're experimenting with, are the border ones. So there are so many options. It goes border dash, and then you have a whole bunch of options to choose from. So probably the first and most common one is border style. By the way, what you might notice or run into is if you try to do a border color and you pick like border color purple, it won't show up until you program a border style first, because it can't color a line that's not there yet. The style is what makes the line show up. So do style first. Okay, and you get tons of options here. I'm not going to list them all. You just get the whole, if you want groove or double or inherit or whatever, or not inherit, but inset, I think. And yeah, there's all kinds of cool ones. All right, you can have a width to your border that's different from the image width, okay? And here again, you have to measure it in pixels. So, typically you have a pretty small number here because this is just going to be how fat the border is, okay? So you have to put a number there. So this is kind of the, how do I want to say, how thick your border is. That's what the width will do there. Another common one, obviously, is color. After you get style, you might want to put color there and your semicolon. Again, I'm not going to list anything there just because there are all of those tons and tons of colors you can reference. And then probably the last common one is, and I kind of like this one, is the border radius, because this is the one that allows you to kind of corner, round the corners is what I'm after. So you can play around. I kind of like maybe like a 15 pixel, but you can play with numbers there. And then just a note, this is what rounds the corners of your images, which makes it look kind of nice, especially if you have a nice border on there too. Okay, sweet. Now, these properties are going to be some of the ones that you will now use in the rest of lesson 11. If you're like, oh, I am already into, I got levels 1 through 6 done. All I have is 7, 8, and 9. Well, there's a lot of parts, sorry, in 7, 8, and 9. In fact, I guess I'll take my writing tab back here. So when you get to 7, on level 7. So I want you to do levels 1 through 6 for sure. Do those. When you get to 7, you're going to see A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay. I'm going to say don't do B for now. It's kind of tricky. And frankly, C is kind of a hidden, tricky one too, because it's going to say find what could cause trouble. So if you don't see it, you can go on to D, E, and F and then come back. And remember, I have a video in Schoology, okay? That'll show you exactly what to do. Level 8 is the one that you have to show. So show that to make sure you get credit for it, because this is the one that goes in the gradebook always. And then 9. Now 9 are the challenge ones. And often I might just pick 1 or 2, but honestly, I really want you to practice with all of these. And you haven't had a lot of practice in actually programming in, oh, I want to do a radius. I want to do, I want to make sure it's floated to the left and do some other things. So I want you to do all of these. Now, before you get all whiny and are like, here's what I want you to remember. In Schoology, there's always a folder that says videos for each level. I don't want you to resort to these until you really need them, but they're all there, every single level. I demo exactly how to do it. So if you get stuck and you've tried it on your own and you've asked a neighbor and you're like, still don't get it, go watch the video. That will help you out. Okay. So you've got all of these properties now that you can use. And ta-da, these are the levels I want you to get done. And I want you to just play around with these, get familiar with them and comfortable with them so that you can have some fun making the website look all kinds of different ways. It's just fun to play. All right. Have some fun and go ahead and start programming.